Hey guys, so today I have Corey from which is the head of growth at Baremetrics. Basically, where we're going to be talking today is how we went from the product being perceived as a nice to have and really not really understanding what it does and how it can provide really a ton of value, to really people seeing exactly exactly how we can affect them, exactly how we can save them thousands of dollars every single month, and then obviously getting a huge boost in free trial conversions, because of that, right? Well, I think Corey will talk about that in a second.
Yeah, glad to be here and share. I think our experience was a little bit interesting too because we were working on one of the add-on products, which has now also been spun out a little bit to be kind of its own standalone product. So head of growth at Baremetrics, responsible for all things revenue growth. We worked together on Recover specifically. So Baremetrics Recover, which is basically like a dunning kind of follow up tool for SaaS businesses with subscription customers.
Awesome. And can you tell the audience a little bit more about what Baremetrics does, like in general, and then what Baremetrics Recover relates to Baremetrics in any way?
Sure. Yeah, we have kind of a suite of four products. So it's Baremetrics Analytics, which is the metrics and kind of MRR, lifetime value, churn, et cetera. We have Baremetrics Recover, which is on the dunning side of things and also allows customers to easily update their payment method, and also serves as a paywall in the app for after they reach a certain point in time. We have Cancellation Insights, which is like an exit surveying tool for offboarding canceled customers, and then Messaging, which is like a lifecycle email tool for a kind of a lightweight customer messaging tool. So yeah, so for with Recover, like I said before, it was an add-on product. Now it's essentially its own standalone product in the Baremetrics suite, if you will.
Okay, got it. Okay, that sounds really good. And I mean, why? What makes it different from all these other dunning tools, or especially those payment reminders that you might be able to set up in Stripe?
Yeah, so kind of the origin story was when I first started at Baremetrics, one of the kind of big first projects initially was to kind of work on upselling and creating kind of these expansion paths for customers to adopt tools like Recover, and then it was just Cancellation Insights back then. And Recover being kind of the breadwinner as far as like revenue potential, and so I really focused in on there. Had a pretty good experience, just kind of upselling the customer base, reaching out one on one, but then reached a ceiling and and kind of worked through the customer base, and then took all the feedback of why they didn't want to move forward, or kind of my own thoughts on what I had heard from them and observations. We packaged that up into a product update, and so worked for about 3 months on really improving the product, and then eventually relaunched in October. And so initially there wasn't that many different features with Recover. Once we worked on the relaunch and the update,
Yeah.
then there were some key differentiators. One being the pricing model. So we don't charge you like a commission based kind of structure or any kind of transactional fee or percentage. It's just a flat rate based on your MRR. We also have really expensive reporting. Some tools don't even give you any reporting at all. And so
Yeah,
essentially within
I've seen that.
Baremetrics, since analytics is our bread and butter, we expose anything and everything you ever wanted to know about field charges, which for some people could be a lot, for some a little, but really helps you also quantify how well things are working, and also are things improving or are they declining over time? Because that's another issue with dunning, is you might find kind of diminishing returns over time. And then I would say just like the kind of suite as well. There, dunning is not rocket science. There's not like any room for any crazy kind of technological improvements. Really, I think what you want is to make it really simple and seamless and streamlined. And with the combination of features we have with the emails, the credit card capture form, and then the in-app widget, I would say objectively it's the most streamlined experience for the customer, where they literally one click from the email, update credit card, or one click from the app widget, and makes it really easy from a UX kind of perspective.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I've seen. Like when we work together, is really just something that you can, really turn on. They're already like templates ready and all that stuff. So there's really not much to do there. It's really just get the result, right? So can we go a little, like go back and and you can tell us what you were doing like before we started working together, like how you're planning on relaunching, Baremetrics Recover.
Yeah. So when we were working on this relaunch, and after we worked through all the product updates and felt like, okay, now we can kind of, position this as Recover 2.0, if you will. Then I started working on the landing page, and I think that's where we started talking together. And where I felt stuck a little bit was the fact that Recover was viewed and kind of had this perception around a nice to have. It was just kind of like an added, a bonus, but it's not necessary. Um, it's not something that really, a lot of companies should use. And we really wanted to kind of change that narrative. One of the first things we started doing was doing a lot of research, and so I would talk to customers about kind of get their language, how they described it, what was kind of the differentiator for Recover. But then we also did some kind of data analysis and looked at the recovery rates of our customers and sort of their success. And I think one of the really key findings was that we found that about 9% on average of someone's MRR is at risk to be lost every
Yeah,
month due to failed charges. But I didn't really know, to be honest, like how to really kind of package that up, especially like having such a specific data point. And it was just a different landing page than I had worked on before. And so I wasn't exactly sure, sort of, one, how to change the narrative, but also how to show kind of the statistical significance of what we found in order to support that.
got it. So when we started working together, you actually knew about that 9% MRR that people are losing like every month. Um, we actually did end up using that angle like pretty much right away. So what was like what problems did you have? Did you have like using all those angles and really selling that part of um, if you don't make any money, you're not going to pay for that month, or that you're only going to pay a small percentage of what you make out of Recover? Like, what
Hmm.
problems did you have, like explaining that?
Yeah, I think the problem was one, historically, and I guess previously, where the narrative was really focused on kind of the positives and explaining what Recover was, but I really didn't get into or talk about why you need Recover, and then how that relates to solving problems and then adding value on top of it. So before, it was very much like okay, Recover is X, Y, and Z. Here's feature one, here's feature two, here's feature three, get started. It's not a compelling page, right? It doesn't really change. It doesn't have the narrative that we want to as a must-have tool, like a foundational piece of everyone's tech stack, right? Especially a foundational piece of everyone's kind of billing tech stack as well. Um, and so getting all that information, I had to rethink the way that I thought about the landing page, and rethink the way that we would incorporate um, all those kind of facts, right? So there was a couple of other like objections or common questions that people had. So I wanted to make sure that we had risk reversal, and then we had a couple of key benefits in there, like you said, where okay, well, if someone doesn't recover as much as their next bill, then we'll give it to
Yeah.
them for free and we'll credit them for the month. So just adding a lot of things like that. But it just felt like, okay, I'm trying to put this puzzle together, but I don't know like the end, what the puzzle should look like at the end of the day. And I didn't have the right, I think a big part of it too was like the structure and the layout, and kind of using your cheat sheet and your methodology and following kind of all the CRO best practices really helped me kind of have a picture of what the end result would look like, and then find where the puzzle pieces went.
Yeah, I mean, I think that sounds really good because I remember that. I mean, we had all this data, but the previous page looked like it literally said, "We're gonna send you like this tool is gonna send drip campaigns to the customers that didn't renew their card or something like that," right? So you're literally saying, "Okay, look,
Hmm.
this tool sends emails to your customers that didn't end up paying, or they had insufficient funds or something like that," right? So it's
Right.
literally that angle. It's just saying we're gonna send you emails, and it's weird because when we did started working together and working on that angle, we found so many like really good metrics. For example, that one about the 9%, they were losing like 9% of revenue every month. That one that the average ROI was like 38 times what people paid
That's
for it.
right.
Yeah, it was like ridiculous. So kind of a night and day difference. So
Hmm.
looking back to before you changed the page and all that stuff, what are some of the frustrations that you had when explaining this? Because obviously this is an add-on, so you want to like upsell your current customers to this. So what kind of frustrations did you have when you're saying, okay, why don't you go ahead and try barometric recovery? That would be like the next value that you can get or something like that, wherever you were explaining it.
Yeah, the problem was whenever I was engaging with a customer to have that conversation and kind of introduce Recover, I didn't really know where to send them because in the app, we have an upsell screen that kind of just shows, hey, click here to start your trial or to get started, and kind of has like a couple of bullet points about what it is and a screenshot. The marketing page didn't give that much more information. And so neither one talked about why you need it and repeated the same kind of things that I was saying in a one-on-one email or over the phone, like a call like this.
Yeah.
Um, so the frustration was really, I felt like I had to do a lot of work up front to kind of agitate the pain or to uncover the problem for people, to tell them that it was and something that was really foundational, that everyone needs it and it's an ROI positive tool like 99.9% of the time, and that there's basically no risk and it's a no brainer. And then I was sent to this page that basically undid all that work that I was saying, right?
Okay.
It was like a conflicting message, where like I would put all this work into it, and then as I click here to get started or to learn more, they go to the marketing page, and then none of that is reinforced, right? There's nothing there. In fact, it's a very soft message and maybe kind of dilutes what I just said. So yeah, the frustration was just that everyone viewed it as a nice to have. The customers who were using it, once they saw results, were very happy and they were astounded, right? Then it
Yeah.
became that kind of clicked for them, but nothing clicked before the first kind of dollars started coming through.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that does make sense. We do need to deliver that, that aha moment before they even try the product. One thing
Hmm.
that I think it's clear here. So just to make sure what you're doing before, we're really just probably chatting with customers on, let's say, on intercom, for example. Maybe you're jumping on calls like these, really trying to sell the value, and then when you send them to the page, they either be turned off and not use it, or they just use the page to get a free trial, right?
Right. Yeah. And the problem too was that there weren't a lot of people active or passively starting a trial and trying out Recover. It was a lot of kind of me and us introducing it through a chat conversation or doing a one-time kind of promotion or reaching out one-to-one, or me having to kind of insert it in a conversation on a call, like on a demo, for example, and kind of introduce it to them, but there was nothing passively going on. So afterwards, once we relaunched the page and the product and had the update, we've seen a huge uptick in basically passive interest. People going out on their own, finding the page, going into the product, and kind of doing all the selling for me. I haven't had to do nearly as much work to kind of upsell and to introduce that conversation, and we've had much better results even with just kind of passive marketing.
Awesome. I mean, I think that sounds really good. Anything that is like turns into a passive salesman sounds great to me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So when did you first hear about me?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think I was trying to think back, and I think the first time I saw you or heard about you was maybe either on Indie Hackers or even on LinkedIn, I want to say. Because I think you were commenting on someone's landing page, or you're talking about kind of some best practices, and I remember coming to the site for something uh, after hearing about kind of what you were doing with messaging and positioning, um, and initially I think actually you started as like your kind of thing was like marketing plus design, and so you were like the
Yeah.
copywriting designer, and then you learned how to position yourself, and but I think that's how I first heard about you, was kind of like the marketing, the copywriting plus design kind of thing you were talking about.
Yeah. And now that I remember that, that was before you joined Baremetrics.
Yeah, it was probably like two
Yeah.
years ago now.
Yeah. That was 2 years ago because I changed that positioning like really like a couple, pretty much after that. right? So
Hmm.
we probably just met each other like on indie hackers or something, and then we just met like a year and a half later or something,
Right.
pretty much
Yeah.
almost like that. Because you launched in October, so yeah, more or less, um, yeah, less than a year ago.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah, that sounds great. So what picked, yeah, what picked your interest?
I think what piqued my interest was you kind of gave away all of your secrets for free beforehand, and you did a lot of teaching, and I think that's what kind of helped me understand how you thought about it and what I could expect when when we sat down and started brainstorming and talking about how we
Yeah,
can make this page better and redesign it, because it wasn't like a cold start. And I think that's a big issue with a lot of consultants and freelancers and agencies, is that it's kind of just like this blank canvas. And they're like, well, I'll help you paint whatever you want. But I'm like, no, I want you to teach me how to paint this, or I want you to show me how to do this, or I want this result.
yeah,
And I think particularly too, that I knew that you specialized in and you had worked on a lot of landing pages, that I knew that we would have a good outcome regardless, because I had already seen that some of your good results and some of the other people you had worked with, and that's what you were focused on as well. It's not just like a thing that you do, it's the thing that you do.
yeah. I pretty much doubled down on that and probably picked your interest. Yeah, so basically what are the like the specific results that you have seen, since we worked together, since you relaunched, Baremetrics Recovery with that new page that we worked on
Yeah,
together?
so we worked on the Recover product update from about June through September, and then in early October, I think it would be end of September when we started working together, and then around mid October is when we launched and released the product update as well as with the new landing page, and
Yeah,
then did a whole launch around product hunt, the email list, social media, and things like that. And up until then, October was relatively flat. Launch day, everyone coming straight to the landing page from Recover or from Product Hunt, from everywhere else, to the newsletter everywhere. Got a huge spike in traffic, and we saw a definite correlation in a spike in trials. And then in the subsequent weeks, a big spike in revenue as well. So we added about $4,000 in new MRR that month, which was a great month for us. Um, and it was essentially it was about 90% from Recover and from Recover adoption. Since then, we've seen a continued increase in adoption and in upgrades with Recover. We've also spun it out essentially as its own product, and we're figuring out we're going to making some website updates now to kind of
yeah,
reflect that in our changes in our marketing strategy. But the landing page still is doing all the work, and it functions as a standalone product now as well, right? It doesn't feel or seem or appear as an add-on product, whereas it was more like it was listed in the features before. Now it's its own page, it's its own product, and it has that same kind of tangible weight to it. um, the other kind of result that we got was, as I alluded to before, the adoption rate was relatively flat. I would have to kind of always push and insert it somewhere, and really we would only see those kind of spikes in adoption with anything that I was doing
yeah.
directly. Now we've seen an increased adoption curve. So customers are passively doing it, and more of our customer base is adopting Recover. Whereas before it was kind of a flat, 20-25% adopted Recover, and it just kind of stayed there. Now we're 30, 35, 40%, and it keeps going up from there.
Got it. Okay. So basically, um, obviously, you got some results from the launch because you spend a lot of marketing efforts there. Because obviously, when you do a launch, you're expecting a revenue boost. But what you're saying here is after you launched it, because a lot more people that are already, let's say, they're a new they're a new Baremetrics customer. Um, you know, more of the new customers end up trying Baremetrics to recover, so basically the expansion revenue grows up over time. So what you're selling, let's say 25% of people end up buying it like beforehand, and now let's say 30 or 35 or even 40 end up buying it. That's a big like passive increase that you get over time, that compounds over time, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And we even had um, we had new customers sign up for Baremetrics specifically to use Recover in tandem with the analytics. We had canceled customers come back for Recover. And then we had existing customers who weren't using anything or who were also using cancellation insights, then tack on recover. And so it's kind of like from all angles. It wasn't just like existing customers, more of them use it. It was also, oh, this is actually interesting. It increases the value prop of Baremetrics as a whole with this update and with this new landing page, and kind of sweetening the pot for everyone involved.
Awesome. I mean, that's actually super cool because I didn't know that at all. That you also got like customers that canceled and other new customers that you just want to try to Baremetrics recover. Yeah, so that
Hmm.
sounds like super good. That sounds even better. Um, when it comes to Baremetrics recover, um, looking back at the amount of questions that you're answering, about barometrics and all that stuff, how many do you get now about barometrics recover?
Mm. Yeah, now I would say a lot of the questions, kind of the inbound questions, are pretty minimal. If I do get questions, they're very specific. It's like, hey, will this work in this case, or we have a single page app, or can I use it in this way, or what about this kind of other feature, or they're very kind of like they're really specific, really granular. Like they already know a decent amount about the product. I would say that's probably like the number of questions have probably stayed the same or even gone down a little bit, but the type of questions and the quality of questions have definitely changed, and they've gone up. Much higher quality questions.
Yeah,
People are expressing more intent. Um, and that's been the biggest difference, I would say, is like uh, there would be some people who, for example, would just ask, well, what is recover, and what does it do, how does it help me? And those would be the type of questions I would get. Now none of those questions come through the door. They've been replaced with these questions which are much more kind of bottom of funnel, for people who are already interested, already know that they what it is and how it can help them. They just kind of need the deal, or they need to know the details, or they need to know how to get started, and or just need some help, right? They just
yeah,
want to hop on a call and walk through a couple scenarios, which is a much better use of my time too, frankly, because I'm a growth team of one, and so I can only spend so much time answering the same question, what is recover, over and over again. I'd much
yeah,
rather hop on the phone and get someone uh, started, rather than try to get them interested.
yeah. Awesome. Yeah, that sounds really good. So what other areas of the business of, let's say, maybe of barometrics or other products or other areas of marketing, do you think have improved?
Yeah, I think one of the kind of key pillars that we've been um, really doubling down on and investing on is sort of people don't buy Baremetrics now just because of the analytics. They buy it for a combination of products or for the whole suite of products. And that's been an entirely different kind of positioning change. Is something that we're kind of working through this evolution of now. But definitely, um, it's improved the value of Baremetrics as a whole. And it's changed our thinking of, well, instead of thinking about, okay, let's push everyone straight to analytics, and then these add-ons are kind of just add-ons. Now it's, okay, we have 4 different entry points, recovery being one of the main other entry points. And then people will buy Baremetrics not just for one of those, but for 2 or 3 or all 4 of them. Um, so it's given us a lot more flexibility, and I would say has kind of widened our net, if you will, as far as marketing goes, because people could be interested in, again, not just analytics, but also recover, and maybe the other ones too. Not as much, but recover is definitely kind of the number 2.
Okay, that sounds really good. And what about like releasing, when it comes to marketing and landing pages, about releasing new features or new products, like for example, Baremetrics messaging that you launched recently. How does that change like your process of relaunching that? How, like, what was the difference when you were trying to launch something else, by yourself before going through the
Mm.
process?
Yeah, I think now, I'll really take a look at the data before, especially if it's something we already have data on, right? An existing kind of product, or something that customers have used before. So I'll look at the data to see what we can pull out as interesting facts about customer success, about results that people have gotten, the outcomes people can expect, examples. Um, and then I'll use kind of that same method. I mean, the cheat sheet that you use, kind of the secret sauce for what makes a high converting landing page, and really agitating the pain, criticizing the alternatives and the competitors. walking through step by step how it works, and then also using a lot of risk reversal and focusing on the call to action as well, instead of it just being like a kind of single small dinky little
Yeah.
button. There's a whole section devoted to it, and then we do a lot of work to appease people's fears and objections beforehand as well. So I'll map out all that beforehand, and even before even we release a product or a new feature, I'm already working on the landing page because I have that in front of me, and I can put that together even before the product is done.
Awesome. So it kind of helps you see how you're going to market and what things are you going to mention about the product or not mention about the product, and probably how you're going to, sell it internally. Maybe like if it is like some sort of add-on, how you're going to message people, how you're going to jump on calls, how you're going to describe it, right?
Yeah, exactly. Even so, like when we released Baremetrics messaging, which is our kind of customer lifecycle email tool, um, I had the landing page done before, or not like done, but I had like the first draft of it before we even kind of broke ground on the code base for the product, because that also helped us figure out how to position it, what we were really after. Is this compelling or not compelling? What are the kind of trade-offs we're going to have to make? And also, who is this really competing against? What kind of alternatives are we criticizing? Because that makes a big difference in how we build the product, right? If we're going to go up against these other tools, and so it's there was a lot of good conversations from that of, hey guys, here's the first draft of what I think will sell out in the market. What do you think of this, and what does that change about our current plans for the product? And there were tweaks, there were a lot of changes, there were a lot of improvements that were made beforehand, just because we went through the trouble and the work of thinking through um, the promise and the landing page beforehand.
Awesome, because now you get to launch the product and really just see, really see the reaction, and you kind of already knew what the reaction was because you tested like individually with, current customers and all that stuff, right? So
Yeah, exactly.
with that being said, from all the results that we talked about, all the process that we talked about, how would you quantify like the ROI that you guys got from working together?
Yeah, I think the ROI increases every day because we got that initial bump, in revenue, which already makes it, an incredibly ROI positive, 1,000% if you wanted to put a number on it. But then since then, right, it's just going to give us recurring returns. Now, even just like with a peace of mind of knowing, okay, well, this page can sell for us. It's going to do the work and kind of passively get people interested and engaged and start trials. And so as far as like an ARR and like a total kind of lifetime, I mean, it's immeasurable as far as the ROI goes. Like it's a no brainer. You do the work once, you go through it, and then you reap the returns forever. And we haven't changed even a single thing about the landing page since then because it's worked so well.
Awesome. I mean, that's exactly what what I like to focus on is really just focusing on something that usually compounds over time and that you don't have to mess that much with because we did all the work up front, right? That sounds awesome. So, what made you decide to, do business with me?
I think one, you're really willing to just kind of like dig in. You also wanted a challenge, and you really kind of challenged me on a couple, asking me kind of tough questions and trying to really get into like the details and the nitty gritty. So you weren't afraid um, to be hands on with it. And I think that's personally what I like. That's the style I like. Just kind of no BS, get your hands dirty, dig in. Really kind of a pursuit of the best and being very objective about the whole process. Not worrying about stepping on each other's toes or does this work? Does this not work? Do you like this? Do you not like this? Is what is going to get us the most customers and represent us the best way and position us the best way. And so I knew that going in, and that's a good match for us and for me, kind of personality wise, as far as culturally.
Awesome. I mean, that sounds great because I'm all about those tough questions. Sometimes I just like to be too objective. Yeah. So what kind of kicked you over the fence, so to speak, when we started working together? Because obviously there's always a lot of doubts when it comes to doing these projects. Because some people might think that what if it doesn't work or something like that.
hmm Yeah, for me, I knew it would be a huge time saver actually, because me having to kind of figure this out and go through a couple different drafts, and just having a second pair of eyes, another voice, another person writing the copy would really speed up the process. And so we had an impending kind of launch. We were towards the end. We were wrapping up the last product details, and I knew that the quicker we can get this done, the quicker that we can launch, and the quicker we can get results. And so for me, kind of what kicked over the fence was like kind of that impending deadline of the launch date, but also just knowing that it was going to save time, and that it was going to be a net positive experience. Like, it wasn't going to add any more work for me. It was just going to make things easier, if anything.
Awesome. I mean, that's what it's all about. So, would you recommend like others to work with me?
Absolutely, 100%. I have, and will continue to do.
Yeah, you did send me a few referrals over, so that does speak for itself. Um, and who do you think a good fit for in terms of SaaS companies?
Um, yeah, I mean, really, any SaaS company, especially, I think there's probably two different kind of personas for you. I mean, one is the founders or kind of operators who don't have a strong kind of marketing or copywriting background. A huge value add there. Even for the marketers or kind of operators who do have a marketing background, um, I think part of it, like kind of part of the value add there is that like you can, it's really easy to get stuck in your own head.
Yeah,
You've been looking at something for so long, like you have all the kind of biases of your own product and you can't really see objectively. So I'd say both for kind of the founder and for the marketer, it's a great fit for both. And SaaS companies across the board are just desperate for this kind of stuff because there's an epidemic in the world of landing pages on unoptimize copywriting and pages and leaving money on the table.
yeah, lots of landing page inspiration that is not ideal. Some best
Yeah, right.
practices that I shouldn't copy. Yeah. So last question before we promote you and we'll link out to your stuff. Um, why should someone listening to us right now, take action to, either become a client or to book that call, that initial call?
Yeah, I think, I mean, your landing page and your homepage are probably the single greatest investment you can make in marketing, because there's going to be all sorts of different, you're always funneling everyone to that same page, right? It's like
Yep.
the hub, it's the thing that you want to really sell your product. So you go through the time and the investment of doing it once, and then it compounds over time. So the sooner you can do it, the better you can do it. And I mean, there's no point in waiting around for it. It's just like you want to have that thing done and optimized quickly, because there's a lot of missed opportunities, customers that don't come back or prospects that don't come back. But also just with the conversions, and everyone's on a timetable, right? It's just literally the sooner the better, because there's no reason to wait at all.
Awesome. I mean, that sounds great. Now, one question about you and Baremetrics and all that stuff. Um, what would be like your number one advice for SaaS companies? And probably something about what Baremetrics can help with, right? Maybe around tracking things or recovering revenue or messaging customers. What would be like your number one advice about that?
Sure. Yeah. I think what we're really about and what we're digging into now is how to make the most out of your subscription billing data, which is a really kind of unsexy phrase and term, and it's not something that anyone thinks about at all. But
Yeah.
there's tons and tons and tons of room for improvement, for optimization, and for finding growth opportunities, to be frank. I mean, with analytics, that's kind of the hub of tracking everything. Recover, stop leaving money on the table, optimize and maximize your revenue retention. Cancellation insights, learn why customers cancel. I mean, there's really nothing else that out there that does this. And it's one of the most invaluable pieces of data that you can have as a business to learn how you can improve the product, customer experience, your marketing, positioning, the whole kind of onboarding experience as a whole as well. And then with messaging, now we're kind of taking this to the next level of looking at, okay, well, instead of having to send data around to all sorts of different places with Zapier or APIs or all sorts of different kind of webhooks and connectors, why don't we just give you the most foundational and important information which is about your customers, and then use that to trigger personalized and relevant customer lifecycle emails. So, upselling, onboarding, retaining customers, getting referrals. These are all things that are a little bit iffy in other tools because you need to get that data in from somewhere else, and you
Yeah.
don't want to make that mistake. So again, having this kind of foundation set with making the most out of your subscription data will go a long way, and is also one of those things that once you do it, it's done. It's going to give you the returns over time, and you can go focus on other things that are going to move the needle.
Yeah, I mean, I think that sounds really good because, for example, when you're talking about the messaging, Baremetrics messaging and selling all that stuff after they cancel and all that stuff, you can really get those insights if you don't use Baremetrics, right? You don't know why people cancel, when they
Yeah.
cancel, for which reason, and all that stuff. For example, the fact that you knew that uh, customers who cancel came back because of Baremetrics recover, that's a huge insight. The fact that you knew
Hmm.
that new customers were focusing on 100% on just wanted Baremetrics recover to start with is a huge insight. The fact that you knew how much revenue you're getting from expansion revenue, it's an amazing insight as well because now you just launched another add-on, right? And that's changing how the whole company goes just because you knew, okay, we're getting a ton of revenue um, from these add-ons, right? So might as well double down on it. So that's something that I
Yeah.
really like about the tool and the company itself. So
Thanks.
congrats for that. Um,
Thank you.
yeah, and last question is really where can people find more about you online and find more about Baremetrics online as well? Good
Yeah.
opportunity to plug in your side projects as well.
Sure. So baremetrics.com, all things baremetrics related. You can also follow us on Twitter. We have a pretty good kind of Twitter game going right now for baremetrics. You can find me at coreyhaines.co, Corey Haynes Co. on Twitter. I've got a few side projects. If you're a SaaS company or someone who's interested in growing and marketing and all these other things, I have refactoring growth, mental models for marketing, 2 courses. More recently, swipe files, curated teardowns of what makes marketing examples great, and kind of gives you kind of that actually good marketing inspiration that you need instead of looking at the bad
Yeah,
inspiration. But yeah, there's lots of places. Baremetrics.com, coreyhaines.co are probably the best 2 places to start.
yeah, that sounds great. The swipe files is the only one that I recommend. Otherwise, it's just full of bad examples. People ask if they're good and just no, they're horrible.
Right, right. You don't want to, yeah, it's bad output or bad input equals bad output, right? So you want to get the right inputs, and especially for marketing, you want to be looking at the right things.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for jumping on this interview, and yeah, bye everyone.